How's it going, everyone? Hope you're having a good day. And today we're talking about 4K versus ultrawide monitors, both of which have gotten a lot more widely available and a lot more budget friendly. So there's upsides and there's downsides. And today we're going to try to cover everything with gaming and productivity. So let's jump in, starting with the ultrawide monitor. This is a 40-inch 3440 by 1440p, 144 Hz IPS panel. And considering its size, it's also nowhere near the price of other monitors with these specs. But then again, we have 4K options that are also within a similar bracket. Now I want to cover this topic as a whole, not specifically these monitors in particular. Or even LG's 48 and 42-inch OLEDs, which are also becoming more of a viable option for the extreme when it comes to monitors. But unfortunately, they're also a little bit too big if you're sitting up close in normal desk scenarios where you're literally gonna have to break your neck to look at your mini map. Even though the time that I have had with the Innocent display has been pretty good. Now, FYI, if you haven't heard of this brand, neither have I. They actually sent me an email, which normally I don't respond to a lot of emails regarding some questionable stuff that would absolutely not be worth covering. But this actually seemed to be a compelling deal, especially for a monitor at this size, for its specs, and the price. Now, in general, most modern displays come in either 16:9 or 21:9 aspect ratios. Of course, there are exceptions to this, being 32:9 aspect ratios in super ultrawide monitors, but for the most part, they come in those aspect ratios. And 4K gaming displays are usually around the 27, 28, or 32-inch range. Ultrawides also land within this 30 to 34-inch, sometimes 40-inch range, and that pretty much covers all the widely available monitors. So the user experience between both monitors is very different, and it's a pretty mixed bag for me. Obviously, there are the upsides and the downsides of ultrawide. But for the most part, I can only explain as much as I can, and I think the only way you're really gonna understand which one you like is probably sitting in front of these. So if you can find like a display or a store, probably checking one out is the best thing to do. Number one is playing open world games. Ultrawide really allows you to dive in and get immersed by the wider field of view with the story and the world you're interacting with. I find that it improves your overall spatial awareness when you're gaming, and I feel like your eyes gaze around a bit more, so it keeps you feeling less perceived eye strain and avoiding tunnel vision, and just overall more natural in some cases. Of course, one of the drawbacks of ultrawide can be its support. So occasionally you will find black bars in cutscenes, and just 16:9 content will always have black bars if you're watching videos or movies, shows. So it kind of sucks. That's the only downside. Of course, there's also the lack of support for next generation consoles that just really isn't there. Now, some of the benefits of using a 4K monitor obviously come with its pixel density, its overall image sharpness, and its HDR capabilities. And overall, ultrawides do look a bit softer in the 3440 by 1440p resolution. So you won't have any aspect ratio issues, and at the same time, text and fonts in general look razor sharp with high DPI displays. Gaming on a 4K monitor also feels like it unlocks another level of clarity and detail that you didn't see before, where you start to notice the little things you would have never noticed outside of 4K's resolution. You find details on character models and weapons like scuffs and scratches. Everything looks phenomenal. But with this added level of clarity will require more juice to power, thus reducing your FPS and making it more difficult to run than something like a 4K monitor. So I find it to be a double-edged sword, where 16:9 monitors do feel faster in some cases for competitive gaming, and ultrawides excel in story games, racing games, or games that really feel immersive, if that makes sense. You can absolutely play FPS shooters on ultrawides, but you may need to tweak the FOV sliders a bit or just get used to the distortions at the edge of the screen. These distortions can cause objects to appear closer than they really are and move at a faster speed than the center of the display. A lot of FPS games use a method called rectilinear projection to create peripheral vision and a feeling of depth when you're displaying a 3D environment on a 2D display. And with 21:9 monitors, when you increase the field of view further, you will increase the amount of distortion and the skewed effect around the edges of the display. This is also where we can begin to explore curved versus flat displays. You'll notice a lot of ultrawide monitors are curved. And the reason for this is to keep equal distance from the center and edges of the display relative to where your eyes are, which actually does add to the immersion effect and can offer a more uniform picture quality in general. The edges of the screen are now at a similar angle to the center, and it works great when you're sitting at the right distance. But at the same time, it does amplify distortion and even induce motion sickness in very fast FPS games. Curved monitors can also bounce glare into the center of the monitor because of the angles, and sometimes it appears to be worse on curved monitors than flat monitors, but overall, I like a slight curve to the display for gaming. Now for things outside of gaming, it's another story. Back to 4K monitors. These monitors can offer you a bit more vertical headroom for programs that require it, but at the same time, you are also going to possibly run into some window scaling issues. Where ultrawides can run at 100% scaling, 4K needs between 125 to 150%. So you can run into wonky UI, small text, and actually less overall space for multitasking. Where ultrawide monitors basically allow you to mimic two monitors without a center bezel. But the missing vertical space can be a drawback. This monitor, for example, works perfectly for multitasking and even professional work because it lacks a curve, where a curve will slightly skew straight lines on the screen where some people need their straight lines. So a lot of it is going to depend on your own personal preference and whatever you're going to be using your monitor for. Remember when curved TVs were all the craze a couple years ago and then it kind of died out? It kind of stayed going on with the monitors because when you're sitting close to them, the curve does actually help out. I daily drive two slightly curved LG Ultrawide monitors, and I absolutely love them for productivity and for gaming. They pretty much cover everything and check all the boxes for me. So then again, 4K is an interesting monitor to go for though. I feel like the refresh rate gap between ultrawide and 4K is narrowing, and you will be able to push more FPS in ultrawides to support 144 or 160 Hertz. So it's not like you're limited to 100 or 120 Hertz anymore. And most content I do watch online is in 16:9, so I normally do have black bars on the side. Sometimes I just don't watch the video full screen and it does fix the issue, but I can see how that can be a problem for you. But when you do find content that is in that cinematic 21:9 aspect ratio, it looks absolutely amazing on an ultrawide panel, where watching content like that is gonna make you not wanna go back. Now you have to ask yourself if you do play a lot of competitive shooters, story games, or even Minecraft. I feel like ultrawide works really well for productivity in a lot of cases, multitasking, and story games, and 16:9 for the competitive audience. But I feel like 2K is sort of the sweet spot between 1080p and 4K, and you're gonna get good resolution, and at the same time, you're not going to have to break the bank running a super powerful GPU to crank out those pixels. Of course, this is all dependent on whatever you need your monitor for and whatever your budget is. You might be better off spending that money towards a better graphics card and getting a 2K monitor if you're upgrading from 1080p, but if you are at that 2K spot, jumping to ultrawide or 4K is a great option. I love ultrawide monitors, they are my specific preference, and honestly, once you get that ultrawide experience, you can't go back. Honestly, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys liked the video. Let me know if you'd like to see anything down in the comments below and what your opinions are on the topic. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one.